Delta Plastics. My name is Autumn Wilson.
And I'm Haley Johnson.
And we are members of the senior seminar class that is doing a case study on whether or not Delta should build a manufacturing facility in Texas. And
so our questions are, should Delta build a recycling facility in Texas? How big is the market in Texas for recycling, and what are the pros and the cons of building a recycling facility?
And now, whenever we were doing our project, what we understood is they were wondering about construction, and whenever you look at the market, about 55% of it is based on construction materials, but that can mean anything from sheetrock to concrete to boards, plywood, and maybe a little bit of plastic. And so then we went ahead and looked at the agricultural market, the one that Delta is already in and already does well in, and that is how we are basing our research.
So our first graph is the types of registered farmers and ranchers in Texas, and there are over 200,000 registered farmers and ranchers in the entire state of Texas, and most of those are in the southeast part of the state. Mostly this includes fruit and vegetable farmers, 65%, and then there's shelf-stable meat, protein, grains, and dairy as well. All of these farms have the potential to use and recycle the LDPE number 4 plastic. And as you can see from the large number of vegetable and fruit farms, that Polytube would be a good idea for this area.
When looking at the graph, you notice that there's a lot of farms that are fruit, vegetable, and that are meat, protein. And so then whenever we look at the topographical design of the state, we see that Texas is very similar to Arkansas, and we see that that Polytube is something that gets used in Arkansas very frequently. And so then that is why we are assuming that Delta would be willing to open up another collection facility near Waco, Texas, for just more agricultural plastic, excluding the construction plastic because there are quite a few hoops to jump through for that.
So our next graph is the types of recycling activities from the different recycling facilities in Texas. So there are 24 regions in Texas with 100 total recycling facilities, and within those recycling facilities there's material recovery, compost, electronics, hazardous waste, C&D, plastics, and glass. So material recovery and compost mulch recycling are the most popular, with 55.5% of the facilities in Texas. What's important to look at here is that the plastics only account for only 4.9% of the facilities, but this also accounts for all plastics, not just LDPE number 4. Another one to look at would be material recovery. So material recovery is facilities that collect recyclables from public or commercial sources, and then they sell the materials directly to brokers or an end market, but that excludes such facilities that only aggregate or transport recycled materials to a MRF or material recovery facility for further processing. So as we said before, one of the recommendations is to create a learning curve for these farmers because of the farmer's age. So the average age of the farmer in Texas is around 58 years old. So one of the weaknesses around this is, would those farmers be willing to learn new things? And then another recommendation is that if they were to build a plant, you would need to build it around Waco, Texas. And the benefit to this is that it would be a cost saver because of its location close to all of the interstates, and then weakness of this is the cost of building the facility.
So when analyzing the costs and benefits of the questions that we were answering, our first question was whether or not they should build a recycling facility. So this one's pretty cut and dry. The cost is going to be how much the recycling facility is going to actually cost the company, and that has been around about $100,000. But the benefit would be that they don't have to drive this material all the way back to Stuttgart, which is what they have currently been doing, and it's very inefficient in that way because you have to pay all that trucking costs there and back. And so, as far as how big this market is, the market here in Texas is very similar to the market that is in Arkansas in reference to agriculture. So, we see this being a big benefit for Delta because they already are very niche in this market and are very good at what they do. So, they could easily open up another plant in Texas to mitigate the labor that is being done in Stuttgart. And then the last being, what are the pros and cons of building the recycling facility? Again, this is going to just be the costs of the facility itself and the cost to the time that the workers are going to have to spend teaching the farmers how to use the material that they are building. And the benefits of this are going to be not having to pay the extra shipping costs to get the stuff to Stuttgart, to have to manufacture it there and then send it back to Mesquite. And so, roundabout, it's just a big money saver overall.
So, in conclusion, as you can see, there's a lot of cost associated with building a facility in Texas, and there's a lot of risk involved. But if you are able to gain the farmer's trust, then it would be good for the company in the long run.
And so, whenever you're looking at whether or not to make this decision, you have to understand and whether or not you are a risk taker as a company. And we know that Delta Plastics is fairly small at the moment, but they have just acquired 3 other pretty substantial sized companies. And so then we don't know if this is the proper action for them right now. But if, as risk takers in the future, we do propose that they move and make a facility for collecting plastic in Texas.
We just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation.
And we wanted to say thank you to Delta Plastics for allowing us to do a case study on your company, and we hope that you take our recommendations well. So she likes our recommendations.
Oh. We need to have a blooper reel.
This is going so well.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, B. Give me